This is part two of Catholic Encyclopedia on adultery and marriage, divorce, and remarriage. As I was saying here at the beginning, uh, the study of adultery, as more particularly it being affecting the bond of marriage. Um, Notice it doesn't affect the bond of sex, it's marriage. And so over to divorce we go. But the study of divorce is unique by looking to the Catholic Church for definitions. Divorce is outlined down here as four different considerations. Uh, the Christian marriage holds the marriage together as uh, indissolubility, or you can't take it apart. When God joined you together, and He said, "Don't let man take it apart." That means you. That means your spouse. That means including the Pope. This is the outline of the indissolubility of marriage, and in part by way of restoration through Christ. The indissolubility, um, as you can see, is brought forward most prominently by Mark 10, verse 11. And if the wife shall put away her husband and be married to another, she committeth adultery. Um, and being both are adultery, which is to say that you not hardly get a free pass on divorce um, based on only remarriage as adultery. Because if you got a free pass on divorce, it would you wouldn't be looking at the indissolubility of marriage. I have an appreciation that indissolubility of marriage was brought forward by the words of Christ, uh, being ordained by God in the creation and was grounded in human nature. And I like the grounded in human nature because that means that it is inclusive to the flesh. That which is the sinful nature of man is attached to that which is ordained by God as um, grounded in indissolubility. Here the definition starts to go more lax in how they want to look at natural law, um, which is the essence of inclusive to the flesh. And of course, the marriage that is inclusive to the flesh has flesh defined as infinitely sinful. And so if you do infinitely sinful, pretty soon you got natural law taking marriage apart or diluting the indissolubility into, in a certain sense, it's indissoluble. Yet, even by way of looking to the natural law, it's still intrinsically indissoluble. That is, in obedience. It cannot be dissolved by any higher authority than the contracting parties, or in other words, the Pope can't take it apart. Nobody is higher than the parties that are married, and that's more specifically a qualifying of what divine positive law is. Um, what God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. Uh, while the Catholic Church also acknowledges that it has a need to acknowledge the civil authority that is separate from the church. And in certain cases, divorce in the strict sense can be sanctioned by civil authority. Divorce among the Israelites, or Old Testament divorce, I'm really clear in my understanding that one of the uncleannesses is of your wife is having an offspring that isn't your child, and that's unclean. Divorce was enabled due to the hard hearts of the people. I moved on to consideration 3, which is dogmatic basis of practical application for complete dissolvability of a consummated marriage within the Catholic Church. Uniquely, this goes toward the complexity of Matthew 19:9. And what does that mean? And that's almost the whole paragraph here, but also adds to it Matthew 5:32, saving for the cause of fornication. Since we spent our fair share of time going through those two scriptures, I'm going to just bounce right out of it. Simply put, the innocent party, even after dismissal by way of, divorce, can only enter into a new marriage in case of death, and that's the only condition of a new marriage. The more you look toward Paul and even Old Testament definitions, the more you're going to find your way to enabling a divorce or even an annulment, which of course is under Pope authority to take it apart. I might add that the acceptance of indissolubility of marriage as an article of faith defined by the Council of Trent is demanded in the Creed, by which Orientals must take their profession of faith when reunited to the Roman Church. That's a unique little quote that the Orientals parted from the Roman Church, and otherwise it doesn't pertain to them. And there's a whole study of what a Oriental church is. It's essentially the Eastern churches. But I might add that the Church of Rome addresses Latin as its major language, and the Oriental Church has Greek as its language. And without knowing anything else, I could almost pick sides that I have a much higher appreciation for Greek than I do Latin. But that don't mean that I reject the Roman Catholic Church as a defining. The outline goes on to address nullity and the process of how to accomplish that. One of the ways is, if you're the innocent party, let's say your spouse divorced you and you didn't want a divorce, you could take that concept to the church and request for the opportunity to have an annulment, and then be able to marry somebody else back into the church with a church blessing, which I don't believe in, because because the original design is to seek reconciliation, and there's no other answer to that. Here, a non-Christian marriage can be dissolved by an absolute divorce under certain circumstances in favor of the faith. It is aided by following the Pauline principle. And of course, that's to follow Paul. As clarified earlier, there's a limited divorce or separation from bed and board. You need to address how to be physically apart while trying to put yourself back together again. The defining goes on and on. As I look to this definition here, all sexual intercourse outside of married life is regarded equivalent to adultery in justifying complete separation, even in the unnatural sins of sodomy and bestiality. Well, we've kind of worked through the definition, but it wanted to, first of all, clarify that whenever it says intercourse previously, it knows how to say sexual intercourse. It's not to be assumed that the previous intercourses were sexual, because here's the willingness to address sexual, and it's regarded equivalent, which of course is the same as saying that it isn't actually adultery, but we're going to call it adultery as good enough. Again, danger of body and soul can be legitimate, but it can also be exaggerated into I want to win a divorce case or etc. But it with God, it doesn't modify marital instructions beyond turn to Christ and pray for reconciliation while you don't allow yourself to submit to absolute danger to your body and soul. So such is the study of Catholic marriage, divorce, and remarriage, and adultery.